without exception, weak or strong, long, large, medium, short, subtle or gross, visible or invisible, living near or far, born or coming to birth, may all beings have happy minds. Let no one deceive another, nor despise anyone anywhere. Neither from anger nor ill will should anyone wish harm to another. As a mother would risk her own life to protect her only child, even so towards all living beings, one should cultivate a boundless heart. One should cultivate for all the world a heart of boundless loving friendliness, above, below, and all around, unobstructed, without hatred or resentment. Whether standing, walking, or sitting, lying down, or whenever awake, one should develop this mindfulness. This is called divinely dwelling here, not falling into erroneous views, but virtuous and endowed with vision, removing desire for sensual pleasures. One comes never again to birth in the womb. Okay, with this metta thought, let us begin our meditation. As usual, we start. Friends, my method is repeating the same instructions over and over again the same way. As I believe that if I ask somebody to dig 100 feet into the ground to get water, somebody can dig 10 feet and 10 holes, each having 10 feet deep, and comes and tells me that he dug 100 feet, but he cannot get water. He has to dig 100 feet in one place to get water. Similarly, when we give instructions, we give the same instruction again and again to drive the message into their heart and mind, so that they will continue doing this practice even when they are alone, without any teacher, without any guidance or books. Any solo practitioner can follow these instructions if they remember them. And that's exactly how we proceed with the practice. So I once again ask people to pay total undivided attention to their breath, and while breathing in and out, notice the changes of breath, the feeling, perceptions, thought, and consciousness of. Also, they notice the feeling of breath, that is, the breath itself is the form, sankhara, and with this form we experience feeling, and mentally we perceive the breath. We pay attention intentionally, and we are conscious of the breath. These are the names we use for 5 aggregates: form, feeling, perception, volition, and consciousness. As we breathe in and out, these are the things that change, both the mentality and materiality. They change, they rise and fall appear and disappear. All the time, every moment we breathe in and out. Then mind gets so used to it, this awareness, and the mind will be totally overwhelmed with this awareness. Nothing is interfering. At that time, no greed can arise. If greed arises, it agitates, excites our mind. When we pay attention to our breath, feeling and so on, the body, the mind, breath, all becomes calmer and calmer and calmer. At that state, no greed can arise. And then mind becomes even more calm and peaceful. At that level, we experience the feeling of metta that we recited earlier. Metta also has 3 levels of practice: verbalizing, thinking, and experiencing, feeling. We verbalized it, we thought of them, of these words, and now when the mind is totally clean or calm, we experience the sense, the friendly feeling. And then resentment does not arise. That is the second hindrance. When these 2 hindrances are out of our way, the mind, breath, feeling and so on becomes even more calm and relaxed and peaceful. At that time, some people feel sleepy, and we have to overcome sleepiness and drowsiness. In order to overcome sleepiness and drowsiness, Buddha has recommended for us to visualize a very bright light, like sunlight. When we visualize that, our sleepiness fades away. Or, alternatively, we can take a deep breath, hold it as long as we can, and then slowly breathe out. And we repeat this several times. Then our sleepiness fades away, body warms up, energy arises, and no longer we feel sleepy or drowsy. When this happens, there may be excessive energy that makes us restless and worry. That is also possible because we have done something incompletely or incorrectly, or we remember certain traumatic experience or something very lovely, or the mind goes to the future, planning the future. As the mind vacillates between the past and the future in this way, we cannot meditate. Therefore, we have to forget the past, forget the future, and focus the mind on the present moment. Present moment is the moment that we breathe in and out, and we focus the mind on this breath as it moves in and out. And again, as mind settles on this movement of breath in and out, our restlessness and worry fades away. Then remains doubt as a hindrance. We have to recollect the qualities, attributes of the Buddha who has attained Buddhahood by following the method he introduced to us. And from his personal experience, he gave these instructions to his disciples. And the Buddha himself followed Dhamma. This method is in the Dhamma, in his practice. So he assured us that if we follow that method, we also can attain the same state of liberation from samsaric suffering. And they are his closest disciples, bhikkhus, bhikkhunis, upasikas, following the same method, attain liberation from samsaric suffering. And therefore, there is no reason for us to doubt about the Buddha, Dhamma, and Sangha, and morality. When we overcome this, whatever doubt we have in our mind, we can overcome even that by looking at our own achievements so far, that we have been able to overcome our greed, resentment, sleepiness and drowsiness, restlessness and worry. Overcoming all this is our success. And therefore we trust ourselves. So we trust the Buddha, Dhamma, Sangha and us, and continue our practice. Then when all these hindrances are out of our way, mind is so light and delighted, we gain joy, and that joy increases by degrees, and mind becomes even more calm and peaceful. Then happiness arises. That happy state of mind gains concentration. Therefore, using that concentration, we focus the mind again on the body, feeling, perception, thought and consciousness to see the subtlest changes of them. They are very quickly changing all the time, never remaining the same, even for 2 consecutive moments. And these changes we call nature of Dhamma or nature of impermanence. Impermanence, in other words, is the nature that exists all the time, whether the Buddhas come into existence or not. And we can see this happening within us so fast that we cannot identify or isolate one from the other. Body, feeling, perception, thought, consciousness, contact, attention, the elements, earth, water, air, fire elements, all are changing at the same time. They don't take turns to change, they change all the time. However, since we are not very mindful and our mind is not deeply concentrated, we cannot see this change. Now in our practice, we try to gain concentration. It may necessarily not be jhanic concentration. we need concentration sufficient enough to see impermanence as it happens in our aggregates. Aggregates are the things that we are supposed to see as they are. And friends, I want to stop here my very brief instructions, and we continue to practice meditation for the rest of the time until I ring the bell. By means of this meritorious deed, may I never join with the foolish, may I join always with the wise, until the time I attain Bhavana. May the suffering be free from suffering, may the fear-struck be free from fear, may the grieving be free from grief, so too may all beings be. From the highest realm of existence to the lowest, may all beings arisen in these realms, with form and without form, with perception and without perception, be released from all suffering and attain to perfect peace. Excellent, excellent, excellent. Now, friends, we want to spend the rest of this morning's time focusing our mind on the Dhamma. I want to recap the theme of these talks. We started with noble 37 factors of enlightenment, and 37 factors are 4 foundations of mindfulness, 4 striving, 4 bases of accomplishment, 5 faculties, 5 strength, 7 factors of enlightenment, and the Noble Eightfold Path. Item number 1 of this is 4 foundations of mindfulness. We were talking about the first of the 4 foundations of mindfulness. First is mindfulness of the body, which is divided into 6 groups, 6 categories. Mindfulness of the breath, mindfulness of clear postures, mindfulness of clear comprehension, mindfulness of 32 parts of the body, mindfulness of 4 elements, and mindfulness of the corpse, 9, that is called 9 that is called symmetry or charnel ground meditation. Now, here Buddha wanted to demystify the death and what happens after that. In his time, in his society, just as much as today, people believed even after death there is something remains unchanged, permanent, eternal. And therefore some people buried body, some people cremated, some people left them on a charnel ground. Now there are stories to substantiate these practices. Buddha said, when our Ayu Usma Vijnana, when these 3 segments or factors of the body are left, the body is just like a piece of wood. I would say even worse than a piece of wood. The piece of wood you can use for fire, as firewood, but this body you cannot use even for that. So Buddha wanted to tell us the truth and reality of this body without hiding anything. In the time of the Buddha, when some people, even when Buddha passed away, his body was cremated. When Bahya Daruchirya passed away, his body was cremated. And several people, when they died, even Arahants, when they passed, or non-Arahants, they cremated the body. Some people left the body on charnel ground, and that is why and how the monks got their clothes to make their robes. When somebody passed away, they wrapped up the body in a piece of cloth and bring to a ground which is designated as charnel ground and left there. And some monks, like Venerable Mahakassapa never used any robe made outside or offered to him. He collected the cloth from the charnel ground. The cloth that the body is wrapped up in is soiled, blood smeared, pus smeared, dirty, and even eaten by insects here and there if somebody does not get it very quickly. So those monks whose robes were worn out, they did not go to shops to buy clothes, or they did not ask people to make robes for them. What they did, they went to the charnel ground, and if they found a body freshly wrapped up in cloth, they roll it over and slowly take this cloth from that body. Before he does that, he has to inform the undertaker. There in cemeteries, there were people who took care of those cemeteries, and without their permission no one goes there. If monk goes there to collect the cloth from the dead body without his permission, that is a very serious offense to the monk. And therefore, in order to avoid that committing that offense, they would go to a caretaker or undertaker in the cemetery and gets his permission. He gets the permission from the village headman. So he is pretty secure, safe from Vinaya, from his discipline. And then he either asks the caretaker to remove the clothes, or he himself would remove the clothes from the body and then cut into pieces and stitch together to make a robe. That is called Pansu Kula Chivara. Pansu Kula Chivara. Pansu is earth or dirt. Kula means mixed with dirt. Chivara means robe. So that is how they made robes, because the bodies were wrapped up in cloth and put on the charnel ground. Seldom we heard bodies were buried in the ground. These are the two methods we come across in Buddhist literature that people use for disposing their bodies. And Buddha wanted to make sure that his disciples understand the very nature of this body. No mystery around it, as some people believe. Buddha always was practical, realistic, and therefore even in his meditation he introduced this as a part of their meditation. Most importantly, why the monks, very seldom we hear nuns doing that. Perhaps they may have some fear, but mostly monks wear Pansukula robe. So Buddha advised them to be mindful of using this body. And we learn in first section of this mindfulness of the body using the breath. Second section we learn to be mindful of the movement, postures. Third section we learn to be mindful of minor movements, very, very short movements. And the fourth section we learn 32 parts of the body. So first we learn somewhat very light subjects, and then the fourth part onward we go inside to see the real parts of the body, and we cannot see these parts except those five most clearly visible: hair, head hair, body hair, nail, teeth and skin. These are the five we can easily see. Other 15 of the 20 parts of the body we cannot see very easily. Only when we have a cut we can see blood. When there is a boil, if there is filled with pus, we can see that. We can see the mucus, saliva, ear wax, and so forth. We can see occasionally. But other parts are inside. So that is where we begin. Buddha asks us to use our imagination or visualizing. We visualize at least many parts of our body. They belong to elements. And then we have to visualize the other fifth part that is even subtler than the fourth part, that is the elements. I mentioned elements are not visible, but through their characteristics we can understand elements. And then the sixth part of the for mindfulness of the body is what we are going to discuss today. That is called nine charnel ground contemplation. 9 charnel ground contemplation. Before the body puts into the charnel ground, just imagine, visualize. Normally we don't see dead bodies very often except in coffin, especially in the many Western civilized societies. Bodies are not displayed after their death. They are embalmed and put in a coffin for public to see them, exhibit. But otherwise we don't see dead bodies. And therefore Buddha asks us to meditate visualizing them. The first one is since without embalming, when we die, we all know that a lot of millions of bacteria begins to increase, and what you call gas, and they are discharging body parts and so forth, can fill this dead body. And then body swells up. After 1 or 2 or 3 days, the body begins to swell and bloated, livid, and oozing matter. Now, especially livid body, bloated, livid, and body with oozing matter is also not easy to see. When we talk about this subject, many people get very, very upset. I mentioned in our talking about 32 parts of the body, I mentioned that we have to have a very mindful state. We have to be very mindful and have equanimous state of mind, equanimity. It is very, very much like a scientist looking at a drop of blood or little piece of feces under powerful microscopic lens to find out its properties, composition, contents, for him to do some, come to some conclusion, whether to have a sugar, cancer, and various things. Similarly, we have to keep our mind free from emotional reaction. In this meditation, any meditation, Buddhist meditation, Buddha never asks us to get emotionally involved. We have to be very realistic, we have to have a matured attitude, mindfulness always in us to see, to practice this kind of meditation. With this caution, I like to proceed this meditation. Proceed with the explanation of this meditation. Now see, we visualize, imagine, and Buddha said, as though he were to see a corpse thrown aside in a charnel ground. This doesn't mean that as we see, but as though. This is a sort of visualizing practice. Visualizing. As we mentioned, when we are sleepy and drowsy, when we meditate, we are close in a room and we visualize very bright light. Visualize. We don't open and go out and open the door and see the sun. Sitting in the same place, we can visualize. Many people have the power, ability to imagine or visualize. So Buddha wanted us to use that visualizing power to do this meditation. So we assume that we are in front of a dead body, which is 1 or 2 or 3 days dead and bloated, livid, and with oozing matter. And then, having visualized it, we focus on our mind, our body, and say to ourselves, this body too is of the same nature. It will be like that. It is not exempt from that fate. When this body is Ayu Usma Vijnana, when this body is vitality, heat and consciousness left this body will exactly be like that body we visualize. And we must say to ourselves, this body too is of the same nature, it will be like that, it is not exempt from this state, from this fate. That is, out of 9 stages, this is stage number 1. Stage number 1. Number 2 is the same as we visualize the body. Then we visualize that the body thrown in the charnel ground being devoured by crows. Crows come and peck. Hawks, vultures, dogs, jackals, and various kinds of animals feed on this body. That is their lunch or dinner or breakfast. They make this body for their lunch or breakfast or dinner or snack. They do, for all these things they use this body. And that body in the charnel ground. And therefore my body, so-called my body, now there is no owner for this body. Although we call it my body, after death, no owner. Since there is no owner to claim, any animal can come and eat. And we should be happy that animals have some food and they live using this body for their breakfast, lunch, dinner, snack, and so on. Visualize that. And think this body too, this so-called my body, even though there is no owner, I have, even with some reluctance, I have given up the hope of this body, given up the ownership of this body, and that belongs to these animals, bacteria, and so forth. They eat it. Let them eat and be happy. So we must think of it. At the same time we must think, this is the nature of this body. This is the nature of body. While we are alive, we are so much attached to this body. The moment we die, we are no longer there to become attached to it. It belongs to them. Let them eat. And then that is the second stage. That is this body being devoured by various kinds of animals, birds, insects, worms, flies, and mosquitoes, and so forth. They eat. Don't get upset. If you get upset, you are just emotional. Don't be emotional. Just see, this is what will happen. The third stage is no longer be called a body. Third stage is called a skeleton. A skeleton with flesh and blood, held together with sinews. This is the third stage. The skeleton is there. It has some flesh and also blood smeared here and there, and held together with sinews. And the meditator, Buddha mentioned bhikkhu, because they are more serious in the practice, living in the forest, wearing Pansukula robes And Buddha said, if you are doing that, then think that this body too is of the same nature. It will be like that. It is not gone beyond this fate, not exempt. Number 4, I want to finish this 9 very quickly. Number 4, again, we visualize this skeleton thrown on the charnel ground is flesh-led skeleton, smeared with blood, held together with sinews. Now flesh is gone. Vultures, foxes, insects, all have taken care of that part. They have cleaned it. They have cleaned up. They have finished fleshy part. Now only skeleton remains, but the skeleton has the remaining bones are smeared with blood, held together with sinews, and it is not still separated, broken, severed, but still together held by sinews. So the meditating bhikkhu Buddha said, I think this body too is of the same nature. This body too will turn into that, and it is not gone beyond that. Number 5, again, he visualized the body in the charnel ground. Now it is skeleton. Now, even without flesh and blood, even the flesh and blood is gone, but held together with sinews. Held together with sinews. So he will contemplate that this body of so-called mind also will be like that one day, and not gone beyond that fate, that state. Now the 6th stage is the skeleton thrown in the ground, disconnected bones scattered in all directions. Now no longer held by sinews, but even the sinews are rotten and separated. The body, the skeleton is separated. Here a hand bone, there a foot bone, here a shin bone, there a thigh bone, here a hip bone, there a backbone, here a rib bone, there are a breastbone, here an arm bone, there a shoulder bone, here a neck bone, there is a jaw bone, here a tooth, there the skull. All these are separated and they are scattered here and there. So the bhikkhu visualized that is the nature of this body. This body is not gone beyond that. Now, stage number 7. Again, he sees this scar, the bones here and there, bleached white. Now, over a long period of time, these bones bleached white, turn into white color, like color of a shell. So bhikkhu thinks this body would exactly be like that. Number 8, he sees, visualize that this body, the skeleton, now only heap of bones, bone heaped up, all this together. More than a year old now. Then Bhikkhu contemplates on this and think it will happen to this body as well. Number 9 stage is all these bones are very old, rotten, crumble to dust. Crumble to dust. And then one day, gush of wind comes and blows it into the air. Now this is what happened to this beautiful body. When its heat, its consciousness, its life, vitality is gone. Now you see the stages of impermanence. In this meditation from the beginning, we were talking about impermanence. So-called physical big body appears to our eyes, and we have all sort of things in it, all will disappear. And that is very important part of this mindfulness of the body meditation. Never get upset, just be very realistic, be equanimous, have mature attitude, don't get emotional when you do this meditation. That would really take care of our greed, lust, hatred, and thought of permanency, thought of self. This is how Buddha always showed us the reality. You'd ask any scientist, any biologist, any physicist, they will agree with the Buddha. With this, I want to end today's talk, and friends, keep this in mind, just to know the reality, and not to get upset, to get rid of all our superstitious beliefs with regard to the body. As I mentioned, Buddha wants to demystify the body. I think with this I want to end today's talk and have my regular benediction. May all beings in hospitals taken care of by very compassionate doctors and nurses be well, recover from their sickness, return to normal life, continue their Dhamma practice and attain liberation, suffering from in samsara. And all the doctors, nurses, hospital staffs who dedicate their life, devote their time, energy, and sacrifice their comfort, even risking their own life. Especially I heard that monkeypox, the new phase of virus, is spreading very fast. I hope we all take care of them, and this is the time again our very compassionate doctors and nurses again trying to help, risking their life. trying to help people. May they continue their wonderful human service and liberate themselves from samsaric suffering. And people who have lost their loved ones due to various reasons, and they may be grieving, we want to wish them be free from grief, live normal healthy life, and attain liberation from samsaric suffering. All those who take initiative to help these people in many capacities as leaders, social workers, and so on, volunteers and so on, they also have to be very careful, very mindful, and take care of themselves as well as their patients. May they continue their wonderful service and liberate themselves from suffering. And everybody else whose categories I did not mention, be well, happy and peaceful, live long in very good health, and attain total liberation from samsaric suffering. Thank you.
Thank you, Bhante.
Thank you, Bhante.
Thank you,
Thank you,
Bhante.
Bhante.
Thank you,
Thank you,
Bhante.
Bhante. Teruwan
Thank you,
saranam.
Bhante. Everyone survive.
Thank you, Bhante. Thank you, Bhante.
Thank you.
Thank you, Bhante.
Teruwan saranai sir.
Bye.
Sadhu to Bhante. Bhante have good health. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Blessings.
Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu.
Sadhu, sadhu.